Okay, now students, we are going to start last topic or last chapter of our syllabus, most important chapter, which is said to be the testing of statistical hypothesis. One sample test of hypothesis. So student, this is the chapter number, for example, 10 in Walpole and Myers book. So testing of statistical hypothesis. What is the testing of statistical hypothesis? First of all, we discuss definition and what are the steps involving to testing of hypothesis, distinguish between one tail and two tail test, for example. So this is all about the topic. So we are going to start, students. What is the hypothesis testing? Students, see this one. Hypothesis is the statement about the value of population parameter to develop the purpose of testing. Actually, we are going to test student population parameters. We are directly test population mu. For example, this is the population mean mu, we already discussed. So we are going to test the population parameters and a statement. We develop a statement about the population parameters, whether our statement is true or our statement is false. Remember one thing, our statement is true or our statement is false, nothing. The third idea is that becomes a tie. No, the statement must be true or must be false. One for example, decision has to be taken. So this is what we call testing of hypothesis. Or hypothesis is an assertion or conjecture between two or more than two population means. For example, assertion stand for assertion meanings claim, and conjecture meanings opposition. So once we are going to make assertion, for example, a person that claims something, and the second person must be oppose something concerning one or more population means. See this one, means, population mean, we discuss in the population means. So we discuss in the population mean, for example, mu, population means mu. This is the simple notation. So student, this is what we call testing of hypothesis. A person claims something, another person oppose those claim, and in the end one of the person must be true. Whether the person claim is true or the opposition person must be true. This is what we call the idea behind testing of hypothesis. Example, for example, about the parameters mean monthly income for the system analysis, $3,625. A person claimed that mean monthly income for this system, but another person, for example, report that no, there is no any monthly mean income of this, for example. So this is what we call testing of statistical hypothesis. The mean monthly income for the system analysis is not equal to this one. See this one, a person claimed that, this is the claim, a person claim, first person claim, but the second person are going to be oppose this one is not equal to 3,600 something dollar, for example. So this is what we call testing of statistical hypothesis, in which we are going to form the assertion or conjecture between two or more than two population means. Okay, so this is what we have behind idea of testing of statistical hypothesis. This is another, you can say, definition is the procedure based on sample evidence. See this one, sample evidence and probability. So both are important words, sample evidence and probability theory, used to determine whether the hypothesis reasonable statement is not rejected or accepted, or reasonably should be rejected, for example. So see this one, student, uh, a person claim, if a person claim on the sample evidence, for example, or probability evidence, to determine whether the reasonable hypothesis is a reasonable statement or not, for example, rejected those statement or accepted those statement. So this is what we call testing of hypothesis. So student, there are certain steps involving testing of hypothesis, but first of all we discuss the for example, tabulation, some of the relevant figures in testing of hypothesis. First of all, null and alternative hypothesis. So see this one, student. Null hypothesis. Null hypothesis. So student, in null hypothesis we denote null hypothesis H naught, H0. H stand for hypothesis and in null 0 stand for null hypothesis. Null hypothesis always defined into the form of equality. For example, mu equal to mu naught. We discuss population mean. Mu is the population mean, mu naught is the value of population mean. So null hypothesis always defined into the form of inequality. For example, form of equality, or mu greater than equal to mu naught, or mu less than equal to mu naught. So this is all about null hypothesis. Null hypothesis always defined into a form of equality, just like that. Equal to, some person says that equal to, for example, this is what we have previous example. For example, this one, the mean monthly income for the system analysis is equal to, for example, mu is equal to $3,625. A person claimed that this is what we have null hypothesis, because it is always into the form of equality. This is form of equality. So this is what we call null hypothesis. So null hypothesis, what is null hypothesis? It is denoted by the symbol H naught and defined always form of equality. The null hypothesis is always defined in form of equality. And of course, this is the hypothesis, student. Null hypothesis is our subject of interest hypothesis. We are going to subject of interest, our null hypothesis is our subject of interest null hypothesis. So this is what we call null hypothesis, always defined into the form of equality, just like that, mu equal to mu naught, or mu greater than equal to mu naught, or mu less than equal to mu. Thus one of the these are three possible null hypotheses. In any one numerical you have to define only one null hypothesis. Okay, so this is the null hypothesis. Now alternative hypothesis. What is alternative hypothesis? See this one definition, student. The rejection of null hypothesis, the rejection of null hypothesis leads to the acceptance of an alternative hypothesis. So this is what we call alternative hypothesis. Whenever we are going to reject the null hypothesis, see this one, if we are going to reject the null hypothesis, then this leads to acceptance of alternative hypothesis. And what are the possible alternative hypotheses are there? See this one, HA stand for alternative hypothesis. In some books also written H1, so you can write as well as H1 said to be an alternative hypothesis, or I can write HA alternative hypothesis as mu not equal to mu naught. See this one, first person say mu equal to mu naught, which is the null hypothesis. The second person says mu not equal to mu naught. For example, population mean is not equal to those value. Or possible, what are the possible null hypotheses? There are three null hypotheses. Also there are three possible alternative hypotheses here. The reverse of null hypothesis, you can say that reverse of null hypothesis is said to be the alternative hypothesis. What is the reverse of this? For example, mu greater than equal to mu naught. Now mu is less than mu naught. Now what is the reverse of this one? Mu less than equal to mu naught. Second person say that mu equal to mu greater than mu naught. So these are three possible null hypotheses. In any numerical there are only one null hypothesis are there. Okay, so this is what we call null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. In any numerical, there is only one null hypothesis and there is only one alternative hypothesis. Depends upon this one. If null hypothesis is equal to, then the alternative is not equal to. If null hypothesis greater than equal to, then the alternative less than. If the null hypothesis less than equal to, then the alternative is greater than. So see this one, student, alternative hypothesis defined into the form of inequality. See this one, alternative hypothesis we can write as alternative hypothesis always defined in to the form of, yes, inequality. Inequality. See this one, not equal to, only less than, only greater than. So alternative hypothesis always define inequality. There is no inequality involved in alternative hypothesis, but null hypothesis always define into the form of equality. So if alternative hypothesis less than, see this one, if alternative hypothesis, for example, if we are going to make, for example, if alternative hypothesis mu less than 2, for example, there is a population mean. So what is the null hypothesis across them? What is the null hypothesis? Reverse. It is less than, then the null hypothesis becomes is greater than or equal to 2. See this one, less than or greater than equal to 2. So this is the idea behind them, in which we are going to make null and alternative hypothesis easily. For example, if alternative hypothesis mu not equal to 3, then what is the null hypothesis? How could you make null hypothesis? Mu equal to 3, for example. If alternative hypothesis equal to, then you can solve null hypothesis. So in numerical also describe what is the null and alternative hypothesis. So this is all about null and alternative hypothesis. Okay, now student, another branch or another abbreviation of testing of hypothesis said to be the one tail and two tail test. So student, one tail and two tail test, it is depends upon alternative hypothesis. So it's this is the topic in which we are going to discuss alternative hypothesis. See this one, first point, if so see this one, students, if alternative hypothesis becomes only one side is said to be the one tail test. So one tail test and two tail test depends upon alternative hypothesis. If alternative hypothesis becomes only one sided, just like that, there are three types of alternative hypothesis. Now what is the one tail one sided? If we are going to check mu only less than mu naught, or we are going to check mu greater than mu naught, then this is said to be the one tail test, because student, we are going to check only one tail. See this one by graphically. Student, this is follows normally distributed. All testing of hypothesis procedure population means follow the normally distributed. That's why we make a graph starting from the normal distribution. For example, this is the standard normal distribution with mean 0. Now see this one, if alternative hypothesis mu less than mu naught, then draw the perpendicular from any for example from 0, left side of the 0 here, for example from any, for example point, for example here, and say minus z alpha. Minus z alpha is the tabulated value of the testing hypothesis discussed in the next slides, for example. So अभी आप फिर इतना ही याद रख लें कि माइनस जेड अल्फ़ा ये एक टेस्टिंग प्रोसीजर टेबुलेटेड वैल्यू जो टेबल से निकलेगी. सो दिस इज़ ऑल अबाउट मेथड. ये सिर्फ समझने के लिए यहाँ पर लिखा हुआ है माइनस जेड अल्फ़ा से. देखें, इफ़ म्यू लेस देन म्यू नॉट, अगर म्यू लेस देन म्यू नॉट है अल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस, सो माइनस जेड अल्फ़ा फॉर एग्जांपल फ्रॉम हेयर ऑफ द परपेंडिकुलर जो ड्रॉ किया हुआ है, एंड राइट ऑल लेफ्ट साइडेड रीजन एज शेडेड. इसको शेडेड कर देंगे. ये शो कर रहा है ओनली वन टेल, यानी म्यू लेस देन अल्फ़ा है तो जेड अल्फ़ा से लेस देन वाला रीजन चेक करेंगे. इसको हम कहते हैं वन टेल टेस्ट. और इफ़ our alternative hypothesis देखें, म्यू ग्रेटर देन म्यू नॉट हो तो हम म्यू ज़ीरो से राइट वाला रीजन चेक करेंगे. देखें राइट वाला पूरा शेडेड कर दें. दिस इज़ जेड अल्फ़ा ऑल्सो प्लस जेड अल्फ़ा बिकॉज क्योंकि ये प्लस में है, ये माइनस जेड अल्फ़ा इसलिए क्योंकि ज़ीरो से उल्टे हाथ में माइनस में वैल्यूज़ होती हैं. ठीक है, तो जेड ग्रेटर दैन फॉर एग्जांपल अल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस. इफ अल्टरनेटिव ग्रेटर दैन देन वी मस्ट राइट दिस रीजन. बड़े इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन हैं स्टूडेंट, ये शेडेड ऑल दोज रीजन. सो दिस देयर इज ओनली वन रीजन. ये देखें जो शेडेड रीजन है, दो शेडेड रीजन इज सेट टू बी द टेल्स. This is said to be the one tail test and also said to be the one tail test because we are going to interest check of left tail and of course we are going to interest to check right tail as well. So student, this is what we call one tail test. So if mu less than mu naught, we always check the left tail, just like that, left tail of the graph. And if we mu is greater than mu naught, then we check left right tail. This is z alpha and minus z alpha using the tabulated value or calculate, for example, tables in the next slide, for example. And what is z alpha? Z alpha, it is also in described in the coming slides, for example, testing procedure. So this is mu less than mu naught graph, this is mu greater than mu naught graph because we have only checked left and right tail. So this is what we call one tail test. Now student, if we are going to check both tail, then those tests is said to be two tail tests. If alternative hypothesis becomes two-sided, see this one, mu not equal to mu naught, this stand for mu may be greater than mu naught or mu may be less than mu naught. See this one, if mu not equal to mu naught, then it follows, for example, may be greater than or may be less than. So make a graph, for example, this one normal distribution with mean equal to 0. Now take perpendicular, draw the perpendicular on the left side as well as on the right side because we don't know, we cannot sure about whether mu is greater than mu naught or mu less than mu naught. So we are going to check both tails, less than and also as well as greater than. So see this one student, I write z alpha by 2. So this is the table formula. I already explained, we discuss in the next slides how becomes z alpha by 2, how becomes z alpha. For example, minus is that because of the left side and plus because of the right side. So in two tail test there is a two tabulated value set to be the alpha by 2 divided by 2, but in one tail test only alpha, not divided by 2. So make a shaded region, this is z alpha by 2 minus and this is plus z alpha by 2, and this is what we call two tail because we check both of the tail, right tail and left tail. So student, this is what we have, null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis and one tail test and two tail test. One tail and two tail test depend upon alternative hypothesis, not null hypothesis, because null hypothesis are always defined into the form of equality. So these are some of the important points of H0 and H1, and these are collectively important point. Already we discuss, for example, one of the important point, H1 alternative hypothesis has the burden to prove, some of the has burden, H1 is going to be proved, H1 must be alternative hypothesis must be proved. H0 null hypothesis always pre-assumed to be true. So see this one student, null hypothesis always you have to pre-assume or by default the null hypothesis is true. Anybody says that the null hypothesis is equal to this one, then you can say that this is by default true. So H1, the alternative hypothesis must be we have burden to prove to get reject the null hypothesis, to get the reject the null hypothesis. If we are going to reject the null hypothesis, the one must have alternative must be proved. So H0 and H1 are mutually exclusive and exhaustive event. For example, these are null and alternative hypothesis and mutually exclusive events. There is no any intersection between them. See this one, null and alternative hypothesis, there is no any intersection between them. Null hypothesis is equal to this, alternative not equal to this, null hypothesis greater than equal to, alternative only less than equal. There is no any intersection point. There is a sample points, all sample points included in the null hypothesis is not in the alternative hypothesis. So mutually exclusive events. Here you remember what is the mutually exclusive events. The intersection between those set is equal to null set. So null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, the mutually exclusive events, for example, because they have no any common intersection. Null hypothesis always by default presumed to be true. Alternative hypothesis we have burden to prove because we are going to reject the null hypothesis. So if we are going to reject the null hypothesis, and of course the null hypothesis is pre-assumed to be true, and we are going to reject the null hypothesis in the end, we must have the burden to alternative hypothesis must have to prove, then we are going to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, and a random sample of n, sample size must very important, students are there, sample size is most important point are there to use the reject null hypothesis. If we conclude do not reject h naught does not necessarily means the null hypothesis is true. Do not reject is null hypothesis. For example, if null hypotheses are going to be accept and we write do not reject h naught, then it is not necessary the null hypothesis is true. They only suggested there is no sufficient event to reject the null hypothesis. So these all points are very important, relevant to the numerical. We all points discuss in the numerical. For example, in numerical we discuss sometimes do not reject h naught, sometimes reject h naught, sometimes accept h naught, for example. So all these points we discuss in the numerical purpose or numerical points. So one I already marked, for example this one, do not reject h naught, very important word. There is no any sufficient evidence to reject h naught, very important point. All these are important points regarding null and alternative hypothesis. Okay, now see this one, equality is a part of null hypothesis, equal to, greater than, equal to, less than, already we discussed. Null hypothesis always defined into the form of equality, and alternative hypothesis always defined into the form of inequality, not equal to, only less than, only greater than. So these two lines are also very important lines. These two lines are also very important lines, already we discussed in the above part. So this is what we call testing of statistical hypothesis. So student, this is what we call testing of statistical hypothesis, and we discuss in the for example important abbreviation, null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So this is all about lecture number 9 students. Lecture number 9 यहाँ ख़त्म हो गया है, ठीक है, and we discuss more thing about in the live session of lecture number 9. More important thing in lecture number 9 live session, you all brings calculator to solve regression model A and B, to find the A and B and R correlation coefficient by help of calculator. So bring calculator of the 9 live session, and after that we discuss last for example we have lecture testing of hypothesis. We discuss rules or different steps regarding testing of hypothesis. So this is all about lecture number 9. Inshallah we discuss in the live session more things. Okay, thank you. Allah Hafiz.